All right, guys. So here we are, podcast number 55. Today I have a friend of mine with very interesting story. So it's also my partner in crime with both train Mondioring, and we just have the kind of lucky that we got to do this in person instead of Zoom calls. It's always better to do it this way. I so wish that I can say the real reason why you're here, but you guys need to hold off on that. We're in the middle of a very, very cool project and unfortunately can't share it. But I promise you, the world's gonna know. Like, I promise you. So, yeah, we've been how many days now? 3, 4 days?
4 days, I think.
4 days. And it was so cold. I don't know. Right now, you're with the t-shirt. I had to put this on because I'm like, man, I just kind of cold. But it's been insane, the weather too. But it's really, really good to sit down and talk dogs. And so, again, Javier, I'll let you kind of tell me a little bit in your own pace, anything that you want to share, because I know I'm gonna stop you and ask you things because you do have very interesting story. We kind of overlap in many ways, you know, coming from different countries and really, you know, doing similar things and not relying on welfare and stuff like that, you know, just doing our own thing. So how where are you from? Let's start there.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Honduras. I was raised in Tegucigalpa. That's like the capital of the country. And I'm not sure why I am a little bit of hot nature because when I come here, I'm hot, you know.
Yeah?
Even though I was like, I think it's because in that part of Tegucigalpa, there's a lot of mountains. It's not in the coast, and the coast in Honduras is like here.
Right, it's kind of humid and stuff, right?
But in Tegucigalpa is a little bit, less heat and humidity. So
So
it's
it's
more
like a
tolerable.
rainforesty kind of
There is
stuff.
some rainforest
Yeah.
stuff. A lot of it has been taken down by
Gone.
deforestation and stuff, but it's a really nice place and it has pretty good temperature most of the year. You know, some days get hot and stuff,
Yeah.
but I think it averages. If you look it up, it probably averages 80. Cooper, look at him, like 80, 85, something like that. So it's not super hot.
And right away the question, what's the dog scenery, the dog world? What's around?
It probably has changed a lot, you know, since I've been here. I've been in the
True.
United States since I was 16 and I'm 36 right now. So what, 20 years in the US. I have visited maybe 3 times since I left. So I think it probably has changed quite a bit. But when I was there, the dog scene, you know, you mostly had dogs in the backyard. And you know, like, and people love their dogs, you know. And here, if I probably, like, most of the people that are listening, if they hear that, they're like, oh my god, torturing the dogs or something. But no, they love their dogs. They treated their dogs like family. They just didn't, it wasn't part of the culture to have them inside.
Right.
So
Did you have were there any like just street dogs or stray dogs? Yeah.
lots of street dogs. And actually, I did go to Honduras a couple of years ago, and lots of street dogs everywhere. And very wise because, you know, traffic is horrible, like horrible there. And people are worse than the dogs in the street. You know, the cars are going by and people will get in front of the car. The dogs wait.
They know.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What is it like more smaller type of dogs or just like the typical generic type of dogs?
Yeah, so there were like some breeds that were very popular back over there. You know, if you see street dogs, you would rarely see breeds. You would usually see just like a mix, and they all kind of have a similar look. They're maybe like 50 pounds, maybe a little bit less than that, and they all looked a little bit similar. But the dogs that are in houses, they were actually surprising. A lot of them were purebred dogs. German Shepherds were extremely popular back then. Huskies, In the tropical country,
poor
but
things,
huskies
yes.
were very, very popular. You would see there were a bunch of other breeds, but those are like probably the main ones. Oh, you would see pitties, you would see some Rottweilers, not as common, but you would see a lot of that, and some here and there you'll see labs, but yeah.
So
So there were some
were
breeds.
you kind of into dogs to some extent when you were growing up, or were you
Oh yeah.
just yeah?
Yeah, I was like, I guess one of those typical kids, that they saw a dog and they melted, and any animals, I loved it. And I
Right.
grew up with shows like the Crocodile Hunter, and with Steve Irwin, and all these different people, and I grew up watching them, and I was
Wow,
in love
right.
with the animals, and I love dogs. It was a huge part of it, which actually it does bring some interesting stories that when I look back, I'm not even sure exactly what happened, even as a trainer, because I wish I was there observing. I don't know if I created these things or they just happened, but I'm just babbling a little bit about this story.
Yeah.
There was a dog that my neighbors had named Barney, this beautiful white German Shepherd. I don't know if it was a Swiss Shepherd, but he just looked
I
like a
don't think they
white.
had Swiss
Probably
Shepherd
not,
back then.
but it was just a beautiful white German Shepherd, and they were moving to next door to us. And in the process of moving, they weren't home much, so they would just leave, and the dog stayed out anyway. So they would just leave him a lot of food, and this was a pretty aggressive dog. And through all houses are divided by either some gates and fences and barbed
Yes,
wire, or
yes.
like walls. That one had a wall that was maybe about 4 feet, and then metal sort of fence on top of it, so I could see him. He could, if I put my hand, he could bite
He
it.
can take.
And but I started like talking to him for a while, and it was weeks. And I became friends with this dog that I would pet him, and he would see me and he would wag his tail, and it was really, really cool, and I loved him. And then they moved in. They finally finished moving in, and I had been friends with this dog for like weeks. I could pet him every day. He saw me, he was excited, and then they were already home, and I think they were inside the house. So I called Barney, and he comes wagging his tail. I pet him, and then he looks at me. And I'm like, crap. And I moved
Interesting.
my hand really fast, and he barely grabbed it. I mean, he barely missed it. He didn't bite me, but it was so close. And I'm like, what the hell? That changed just because the parents were there. So he kind of
Yes.
got that protective side, even though for weeks I had been friends with him. And that was an interesting one. And I don't know, because it happened a few more times with other dogs. Like there was another dog that I
But you
knew.
couldn't work it out afterwards with him?
He was always a little bit weird, but they knew he was kind of aggressive, so they never let me go and play with him. So
Right.
it was all from that fence. So there was like that barrier, potential aggression or something. But I never became as close as I was before they moved in.
Yeah, because he needed somebody at the time.
guess so.
Probably
Yeah.
something like that. It's
Yep.
gotta be something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Wow, funny one. What about other, like, what do you have in Honduras as far as wildlife? What something predators like? What do you guys have?
Well, supposedly there's still jaguars out
Oh, yeah?
there. Supposedly, but who knows how many are left. There are smaller cats like ocelot, I think they're
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
There are I don't know if we have bears. I remember like they might have been bears at some point, but I don't think we have bears anymore. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think a lot of it has
Jaguars would be cool.
been a jaguar would be super cool, but yeah, I don't know how many are left, if there's any. There's a lot of deforestation there.
You know, when we bought the place here, I mean, that was what, 2001. It was like 9/11.
Yeah.
When I was buying the place, and the woman I got it from, she was like, there is a, what do you call them now here in Florida? Mountain lion.
Yeah. The cougars or the
But like, I don't know, what is it?
puma. What other
See,
name
now
do
we
have?
run through all the names. Panther, or it must be, it's a panther here.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a panther. And it's like, oh yeah, there is one kind of checking the kennels all the time, but very friendly. So not like it's been around. I never saw it.
Wow.
But I know the woman was serious.
Huh.
And it was like years that I always would kind of hope, that it would be something there.
yeah.
I almost thought at one point to put the hunter camera stuff.
Yeah.
And recently, my neighbor, he because it's like all, it's all swamps and kind of wild behind me, thank God. So he put some cameras and he sent me a bunch of pictures, and they were like a family of like bobcats. But when you don't know the size, you
Yeah.
kind of are like, whoa, I
Definitely.
almost got too excited. But yeah, I mean, they are somewhere.
Yeah.
They gotta be.
Yeah. There's some videos of it. Sadly,
And
attacking dogs.
what about like any more kind of structured dog training back then? What were anybody doing anything? Did you know?
If there were, I was not very aware of
Yeah.
like what they were doing. I mean, honestly, like like I said, like they usually dogs were just taking care of your house, and that
Right.
was actually wanted. Most people wanted a dog that was going to be tough and bark and kind
Right.
of scare intruders. So that was very, very common, and people didn't do that much with their dogs, at least back then.
Yeah.
I think now it has probably changed. But I remember when I got my the second dog that I got, because the first one I was really young, and this little dog, it was like a little Pekingese, and he had an attitude, man. Like he would attack my friends. He would if you open the gate, he would try to get out, and he would get into dog fights.
Of
And
course.
thankfully, he was so fluffy that every time a dog grabbed him, and
He
strong
slips.
dogs grab him, like there was a boxer that grabbed him,
Yeah.
he would scream like he was getting murdered, and you would check him, it was just slobber everywhere.
Oof.
And not even a scratch. But it happened multiple times, and it was super scary. But then after that, I was living with my dad and my grandmother at the time, and a friend of mine had this mutt. I think I had one of the first doodles, because it was like a doodle, a poodle-looking mutt dog, maybe like 20 pounds, and he broke into the house, and he mated with the owners or my friend's Labrador. She was a beautiful
Yes,
black
of
lab,
course.
and they had puppies.
So
and
that's for real.
yeah, it was. But my puppy, she looked like just like a lab mutt. She was black and
Yeah.
a little bit of white,
Just
here and
wiry
there.
here and there,
And
and-
she would jump nonstop, and she was super cool. She's actually the dog that kind of started all this, or this passion, because I started doing everything with her. Like I would come back from school, and we would just play ball and play ball. One time, at some point, my grandma.
So who do you think taught who to play ball? That's a
I
good
think
one.
she came with it. I
Right?
think I don't think I taught it. I think she I don't know. I don't
And
even know
at
how it
some
started.
point, we almost take it for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
a dog is
Wha-
happy, plays ball.
For
Of course,
sure.
he does,
Yeah.
right? And now look at how we, as a dog trainer, how
How we use that. Yeah.
tough it can be to convince a dog to play,
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That is true. Yeah. One thing that I do remember clearly when she started it, and I don't know if she was going to do that anyway or not, but she was maybe 8 weeks, and I was we were out in the backyard, and in Honduras we had maids that would they would come and help us during the
Yeah,
whole
I
week,
know.
and then
This
the
is
weekend
so
they would
cool
go back.
because you get your clothes and everything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
All
yeah.
this
You
stuff.
got everything,
I love this
food and
stuff.
everything.
Yes.
So we were outside. I was hanging out with her in the backyard, and I'm playing with my puppy. Preciosa was her name, or Precious, and I was jumping. And I was just a kid. I was 13 or something. I'm jumping and jumping, and all of a sudden, this 8-week-old puppy starts jumping too. And she was a puppy, so she would jump and she would fall, and she would jump and she would fall, and we would just start cracking up. And I don't know if she just liked the jumping, and that's why she tried that, or because I was jumping and she saw the reaction.
Yeah, it's the
that
reaction
kind of did that.
probably, right?
And that dog jumped till the day she died. She was like, and she was little. She was 40 pounds or so, and she would jump so high.
So cool.
Yeah, and I do remember the first day that I ever saw her do that, and yeah, she couldn't. She would
I
fall
think
every
they're
time.
masters of kind of reading. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I know you like that. I'll
Yeah, yeah,
give you
yeah.
some more sometimes when needed.
Yeah.
Oh, and then what happens? How does the United States come in the picture?
Yeah, so United States, that I wanted to go to vet school. That was the first thing. Like I wanted to, and actually I didn't know really. When you're a kid and you like animals,
Oh, of course.
back in the day,
Yes.
they're like, oh, you're gonna be a vet. You're gonna be a vet. You're gonna be a vet. So I'm like, I'm gonna be a vet. So that's the only option that I thought I had. So in Honduras at the time, they didn't have a veterinary school, but my dad actually just told me that one of my best friends, my next door best friend in that house with my grandma and my dad and everything, he's a professor in like this really good, like excellent school of agronomy or agriculture, in Honduras. And he started a veterinary program there.
Yeah, because that's kind of how in Bulgaria it was within the agriculture.
Yeah, and he started that. So I'm like, really cool. So I didn't have to move, but I didn't do that anyway. But I moved with that thought. First, I tried to stay with my aunt and uncle in North
So
Carolina.
you were good at school then, to some level. Like
to a
I
degree.
was
okay.
very bad at school. I just didn't see any purpose to. I'm like, well, why do I need to know?
Yeah.
When was that revolution or that king died or like it's just nothing made sense to me.
Yeah, no, I worked really hard at school, but it was difficult for me, but I did okay. I did okay in it. Like I had decent grades and everything, but yeah, I guess that'll bring a whole other story of like how do you learn, because if I hadn't had grown up in an era of videos, I don't know if I would have made it through university, you know, because when I went to NC State University, I took some classes and I would read the books and everything, and I couldn't get it. And I would go to the lectures and it kind of helped, but it wasn't enough. It was thanks to to videos on YouTube that I was able to, you know, progress.
Get your interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about interest and focus and and so you, when you came, did you start some job or you directly you did?
So I went to, I was 16, so I moved to Long Island first. My dad had actually, a year before that or 2 years before that, I had tried to stay in North Carolina with my aunt and uncle, but I couldn't, you know, even though they're super loving, and I probably now knowing them, I would have stayed. At the time, I didn't really know them. So I couldn't stay. And then, so I went back, and then about a year later, my dad found his kind of high school sweetheart. They had dated when they were in high school, and she was divorced. He was divorced. They got together again. And then he was moving to Long Island, New York. And then I went with them.
There you go.
It was like a year later, I think, after that. So that was easier because I had my dad.
And how was English? How was that?
I went to a bilingual school the first 6 years of
in Honduras.
The first 6 years.
You're lucky.
And then
I had to struggle.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, because like that's the time when they say that you learn it easier, you know, because I could have had 6 years after, and it probably would not have been the same as getting it at the beginning. But I got it at the beginning, and then after that, even when I came, even with those 6 years, I would not say that I could speak fluently that great, but I could understand it fairly well, especially if you slow down.
Yeah.
And then what gave me that moment that I'm like, oh, I'm getting this was, when I went to Long Island, I was going to different classes, and my teachers, I could not understand them. I was like trying, and I would understand every few words. But every day I would watch Friends, the TV show, and I watched it when I was in Honduras, but I watched it with subtitles. In the U.S., I started watching that show with closed caption. So it was not in subtitles in Spanish, just like the words. And at the beginning, I would just follow it. And I just remember doing some homework or something and having friends in the background. And I started laughing. And I'm like, I just laugh from hearing it, not from, so that's when it kind of clicked. And then, you know, it probably was 6 months or so after I moved. And then my teacher started getting a little clearer. I could, you know, understand them a little bit better. And yeah, but it's been a learning thing, but it was much easier.
Captions, subtitles, it's like priceless. Like when I know, like I'm convinced that it's the reason why, like, for example, like take Belgium. Belgium has like, and I lived there, and I, you know, when I moved from Bulgaria, that's where I moved to. And I was like convinced I'm gonna learn the language, and not French, but the Flemish.
Yeah.
And it's just like this very strange mixture of some kind of strange German, like anyway. And I was putting a lot of time, but what always was like, how come the Flemish people speak more English than the French part? And it was, at least my thinking, as simple as the movies and everything in the French part was voiced over. And in the other one, you hear the English and you read the Dutch. And so when you like, and then I kind of looked into most countries that, somehow they are more comfortable with English. They all had, like, all the movies, everything was always with subtitles.
Yeah.
So they hear
Versus
it and they
dubbing it,
read it, and
yeah.
it's like when you have the voiceover, you never hear the actual,
That's right.
and it starts with some funny phrase or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
and then next thing you know, you're getting
yeah,
more and more
yeah.
in it.
No, I agree. Yeah, because there was some stuff that was dubbed in Honduras, but there were some things that they didn't.
Right.
And thankfully I did, because it sounds funny when you hear something dubbed. You know, it doesn't feel the same
It
as hearing
kills
the
it,
original.
of
It
course,
does.
it
It
kills it.
does. Even some cartoons. Like if you're watching Japanese shows and stuff, it sometimes it kills some of the energy and the emotion,
Right.
when it's dubbed, compared to, I don't know if dubbed would be the right word, versus doing the original one with
Right.
subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember when, that was way back in Bulgaria, and it was the VHS tapes, and we would get. There was the communism. There was like that wall that separated East and West was a real thing. Like, it was really separated.
Yeah.
Any movie that would come from the States or whatever, it would be probably like the fifth copy on VHS tape, which is like extremely poor quality. And then it's translated probably from English to Italian, from Italian to German. And then we had this one guy that he was also, the way I know him is from dog training, because he was also kind of crazy like me. We were training dogs together. But he was the guy in the whole country that would voice over all the cool movies from German, because he was very good in German.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how he had from East German back then, was like a real East German Shepherds, And so and we're training in the park. There is no clubs, or we're training in the park, and I see them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and watch. I didn't even have a dog. And I hear him talk, and I'm like, man, this is like really weird.
I know that
I
voice.
just cannot, yes, I know this voice so good, and I cannot figure it out. And finally, I'm like, oh my God, that's the guy that the whole country knows,
Wow.
It was so funny. But yeah, anyway, these are cool things.
Yeah.
And so you decided to go to, how long before you went to school again? Since you came, like, did you came to the States and
I
right
went to.
away?
I finished
So
high
what?
school, so I went
Yeah.
to high school right away. I was like 16, I think. So I think I went into 11th, and then 12. So I just finished the last 2 years.
So did you have to like
whatever it is.
make some extra classes and stuff, or just kind of go into?
Thankfully, because I had I was coming just around at the right time. Like I didn't have to make anything up.
Nice.
But there is a funny, ironic story later on. So I came from Honduras those last 2 years, high school. Then I transferred. I moved eventually to North Carolina after those 2 years, and I went to a technical community college for, well, it was supposed to be 2 years, but because I was working full time at the time, I thought that you couldn't financial aid or scholarships. I thought there was like a certain amount for every person, and that I was like, I'm just gonna save it for when I need it,
next time.
And I thought that's how it was, and then I found out later on that it wasn't, So I'm like, I could have gotten help the whole time, but no. Instead, I worked full time while I was going to school in the community college, which was probably good.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I was doing that. I was going to take classes at night, but I took classes. I was about to get my associate's degree before I transferred to the NC State University. But there was one class, the only class that I've ever dropped. It was a literature class, an advanced literature course. And I hated it. It's hard for me to read.
Yeah.
I prefer to listen to books or watch stuff. And it was very difficult. So I dropped that class and I was avoiding it like the plague. And when I transferred to NC State, I was transferring all this stuff. I'm like, I'm just missing one class. What's the big deal? And they tell me, well, we cannot accept you. You have the grades and everything, but we cannot accept you because you don't have a foreign language. And I'm like, wait, English is my foreign language.
Right.
I'm from Honduras. And she's like, yeah, but like it's state regulation. You need to have 2 years of a foreign language. I'm like, I came from Honduras.
Jesus.
Isn't that like a foreign language already? And they're like, no, you have to have it in your curriculum to have 2 years of that.
How interesting.
Or you finish your associate in science degree, and then by taking the literature course. So I had to take the literature course.
Oh my God.
But I just found it very ironic that because of regulation, they couldn't use logic that this guy, his English is his second language. I'm fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
I was kind of fluent in English, but
That's how it works.
Yeah. It was ridiculous.
And probably they know it too, but it's like, that's what it says.
Yep,
that's what we
state
have
regulation.
to do.
Yep.
That's kind of like sometimes with the dog training in like police departments or something, it's like, no, this is how we have to do it because that's what the structure of everything is.
Regulation definitely sometimes, it makes sense for a big group, but once you started looking at individuals, some individuals get kind of screwed up with regulation. Yeah.
And so how you did work in the field as like in the veterinary field, right?
Yeah. So when I moved to Long Island first, my first job was like at Target or something, which I think that's where I started loving people because I helped this lady that was in a wheelchair, and she called and told Target like what I did, and then one day I'm helping somebody in the freezer section, and I was a cart attendant, so I never saw them, and they're like, "Are you Javier?" And I'm like,
So
"Yeah."
cool.
And everybody's like telling me, and like, "Oh, some lady called about you," and then I had another moment where every parking lot, it's on a kind of hill, and then one of the carts was going down and was about to hit this lady in a car, this car, and the lady was not moving, and I'm running full speed, and I grab it at the last second, and I prevent her from getting hit. She drives away, she doesn't even notice it, but as I grab it, I hear screaming and clapping, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look, and there's these guys which could have stopped, and they're in a truck. There's like 4 guys in a truck just watching me, like I guess checking to see if I was gonna make it or not. But after that job, I worked.
This is cool, though. These are like, I mean, sometimes we don't think how it can. Somebody that actually you do something good and it gets appreciated and recognized, how much it can influence you in the future. Like saying thank you to somebody for it goes so far.
Very, very.
And we kind of sometimes it's like, okay, but what does it matter? And it does matter so much, right?
It created an addiction with me. I'm a little bit of a people pleaser, So
crazy cool.
It definitely did that. But after that, I applied to, as soon as I could, I applied to a veterinary hospital, and I worked there, and we were working with cats and dogs, and I was kennel. But then they started showing me how to restrain and things like that. There is a story about that
classic
training-wise.
vet techs, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't vet tech
back
yet.
then, you would have 5 of them. Let's jump the dog. We are examining him. He has no choice.
Look. I'm still proud of how good I became at restraining. I have stories with that because, like, even with the restraining, there is an element of, okay, see, it wasn't
Tactic,
that bad versus So but no, and at that first animal hospital, which hopefully maybe I'll forward it to my ex-supervisor from there, I almost got fired because they brought this German Shepherd, and it was this female German Shepherd that had came in, they dropped her off, and then she bit one of the girls that was cleaning her run, and then my supervisor tried to let her out, and she bit her. So then they told me, don't get close to this dog. So
What? Hold my beer.
so, and, I was attracted to all that from
Right.
even then. I was very, very interested. So I started like, I don't know, getting close to her. Like she was in a run. So I would sit next to her and I would just sit, let her sniff me, and then I would walk away and I would just do things like that. Not with thought.
Not invasive.
Nothing initially. But then she started after a couple of days. They couldn't reach the owner, or I think he was out of town or something. He had to come get her because they were trying to get rid of her. And then one of the days, I start getting a little bit more brave with her, and I actually petted her, and then I put a leash on her and took her out to the play area. And then I brought her back, and then one of the this lady that I think she hated me, but she which she should have. I own a business now, so if I see one of the kids, doing something like that, I would want somebody else to tell me.
Yeah.
So she did the right thing, but she told my supervisor, and my supervisor came on her day off, yelled at me and told me, if she bites you, this dog might be put down. And I'm like, I understand. And I took her out the next day anyway. So then they talked to me one more time, and I didn't. I stopped that. I didn't let her out again. But it started. That interest started even then. And I'm happy that, how I told you about the Barney story, that I petted him, I felt that tension, and I moved, and he barely missed. I think if he would have bit me, maybe my confidence with dogs would have been killed, because it happened a few more times. There was
the butterfly effect. Right?
Yeah,
it takes you in a different place.
For sure. I had my aunt when I was a kid in Honduras. She had a Dalmatian. He was fine with everybody, but once he started maturing, he started becoming aggressive. I think they ended up getting rid of him, but I was one of the first ones where he showed that. I was petting him, and all of a sudden he would tense up. And I did that, and he would barely, like, he didn't hit me, but he almost. And she saw it, and she's like, "What the heck?" and I'm like, well, there was one more dog that I made friends with, and another kind of aggressive dog, but he was fine with me. And then I didn't see him for like 6 months, and I went to him and I went to pet him to see how he would do. He was fine, and I'm like, cool. So I go to hug him, and when I hug him, I felt tension, and thankfully he was tied. Because I back up.
Too brave.
Boom, right here. And I, again, if I would have been bit, probably my confidence would have been different. So, but when I look back, I'm like, did I create that? Did I tense up? Or did I notice it and that's why it happened? Did my fast movement create that sort of like snap?
Right.
I still don't know. I still don't know exactly what I did. What do you think I did?
Yeah. The consequences, the chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened, but that happened a few times, and I'm glad that.
What is interesting is that even now you're still analyzing, going back to these things. I do too.
Yeah.
Like I have some really kind of scary stories that I probably not just bitten. I probably would have been torn up like in pieces. You know, like I know one story that I have. Because I one of my obsession is this mountain sheep guard dogs, you know, like the
like the Anatolians
and
like
all this dog. Like this is like I'm like I never miss it. If I have a choice and opportunity, I never miss it. So I don't know, young, like really maybe let's say 8, 9 years old. Few of us. It's back in the time it was just kids playing in the streets. That's what you do. And we were up in the mountains and we see the sheep, and when you see the sheep you know that the dogs are somewhere. So let's go with the dogs. It's like, okay, let's go with the dogs. Well, but we know that they can be dangerous and big, so we get these sticks, like we're playing tough, like 4 or 5 of us.
Wow.
And kind of feeding from each other. Nobody wants to say, no, let's go back home. It's like, no, they're going, I'm going. And of course, like we get to the right distance and the dogs catch us, they see us and they start coming. And it's like, I don't know how many, but they're coming. And it's not like they're running. They have this kind of like that trot, like they're just coming, you know?
Now, does it feel like an intimidating trot, or they're just getting close?
No, it was nothing in the beginning. We're kind of excited. Oh, yeah, the dogs. And then they're coming and coming. And at some point, we freak out because you realize, like, how tall I was and how big these dogs were. I mean, we were like this, like, I'm like, this is not good. Like, we just realized it's not good. And we climb in those, like, the high voltage poles, that are like, like this whole thing that you can climb easy. Man, we stayed there for like 5-6 hours. There is no cell phone. There is nobody knows. We're just stuck there. And the dogs, they're guard dogs. So they don't like, they just lay down on the bottom. And we're stuck there. And for a moment, a very, very funny story, but scary. Like, like we really could have been just.
Could have mauled,
Oh my God. But in the beginning, we're like, oh yeah, we're happy, we're cool, because I'm thinking, oh, I can stay 3 days here. And all of a sudden, you start to realize, because they're like these V-shaped metals, and they're they're not like easy to stand. So you're kind of adjusting. But after a few hours, you're starting to be like, I don't know if I can stay anymore.
That must be the most tense. And the dogs were still hanging out?
This was so, they just, the ships are around and whatever. And finally, the shepherd is trying to call them, and they're not coming. So he comes, and he's all angry, and he's swearing and cussing at us, not the dogs.
Oh my God.
What are you kids doing? Like, you crazy.
Wow.
But we like one bite probably okay, but that would could have been really over, like game over.
That could have been like a whole phobia.
But the crazy thing, I never, like, nothing changed. The obsession is still there. Very, very crazy stuff.
That is.
The mountain dogs, like, these are, like, in especially in this part of the world, are very, very, very cool. Like, even now I get locked sometimes on watching. There is one right now that I'm kind of following on YouTube. 70-year-old woman alone. She has all of it, like the sheep, the cattle, everything. And she has the guard dogs. And every once in a while, I don't know who, but it's somewhere goes and interviews her. And so they make these little episodes with her. And a lot of times she talks about just daily life and what she makes for food and whatever. But the times when she starts talking about the dogs, it's insanely cool. It's just like talking about this old woman talking dogs, like selection and well, she doesn't think of it as training, but it's like training, and it's like so cool.
That is really cool, because that kind of really brings the true nature, not like some of the stuff that we have kind of make them sort of fit into our lives. Instead, they're like we're almost just using what they brought and like just utilizing that.
Exactly right.
So
we
really
lost that kind of. No, we haven't lost it. I think we have it. Of course, we have it, that intuition to interact, but somehow we don't dare anymore, because it's, you don't know learning theory, or you don't know the quadrants, and it's like, I don't know who was I talking with very recently, and I mentioned this in another podcast that I just had, how I would give somebody a task to train a dog. Did I tell you that story? I don't know.
I think so.
Like, I'm like, teach him how to go to place, basically. It was a little basket. And the person has no idea how to do it. The dog has no idea. And I'm watching them, and it's kind of painful sometimes. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work, and they're going to get frustrated. And eventually, after 4 or 5 days, the dog goes to place.
They figure it out.
Just like that.
Now, who figured out? The person or the dog?
That was the cool thing, because it was the cooperation. Like, the dog knew, they both knew that something has to be accomplished, and somehow the dog was very forgiving, and the guy that was teaching it was also very, I wouldn't say guilty, but he was like, if the dog wasn't getting it, he knew that a lot of it was
Yeah.
because of him,
Yeah.
not that because he's just showing him the finger, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like the process itself and seeing it how it just works out eventually. It's just so cool.
Yeah. That is cool.
Um,
That is very cool.
so then what the vet?
Yeah.
So you said you were not a vet tech yet.
No, I was I guess consider
Like
a veterinary assistant.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
a kennel
yeah.
assistant at that
Kennel
point,
assistant,
and then
right.
they started showing me restraints and all that. And then I probably worked there for 6 months to a year, and then I moved to North Carolina. This time I moved with my aunt and uncle. You know what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
3 years before, or 3 years before, and the first day that I moved to North Carolina, one of my cousins, she's like, "There's a vet here. Do you want to apply?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I applied, and I got the job. You know, so it was the first one. And then there, I started as a veterinary assistant, and then I became a tech. And I loved it. I mean, I still enjoy, the science part and customer service.
How much had to deal with euthanasia?
It was a
Fair
good
amount.
amount. It was a good amount. I mean, it wasn't like a daily thing, but
Right.
but we did see it often, and it was always sad. But
Yeah.
a lot of it was necessary. I
Right.
didn't see
A lot of times it's kind of a relief in a way
you have
for
a
everybody.
13-year-old dog that's painful,
Yes.
and they're having trouble breathing. So like it's the best thing, but it still hurts. Especially when you knew them, because a lot of those dogs, I knew them and everything. So it was still painful.
Did you
but
have any of those where the people will just drop it off and they cannot handle it to be with the dog? And
Not much, because
No.
we were in a kind of wealthier kind of
Nice.
section, so we did not get many of
those
those.
are very tough. Like having a dog, it's your dog, and
Yeah, that is
12 years, 14 years, and I get it, you cannot handle it, but that's
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. That is it is. I mean, I can see how it's difficult for some people, but I see it also that even when I had nothing, I would do anything for my dog.
Right,
Like I
right,
would
right.
if I had to. And I understand things can happen. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know
So
how they
what
do
was
it.
your favorite part at that time?
Working with as a tech, well, I did love the customer service aspect of it. I really like people, and then I one thing that I liked restraining. I was really good
Well,
at it.
you got the feel of how to
Correct.
give and take,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And the cool thing is the doctor, the owner, she would let me. She trusted me for some reason. Even when I
Or
was a
she
kid.
was more scared than you.
I don't know. She was really
It's like,
good.
oh yeah, Javier.
But no, she allowed me to do a lot of things. Except one time, I remember there was a King Corso puppy. He was only like 11 months or something like that. So he was almost an adult, but he was still a pup. The mom
For
brings
Cane
him.
Corso, for sure, still up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the mom brings him. He's saying hi to everybody. He's being great. Then she puts him in a run, and she leaves. And as soon as she leaves, we try to get him out, and he's like lunging, barking, like he's gonna eat us. And I walk in, and I see him, and for some reason, and it's not like I had a ton of experience with that or something, I'm like, it felt like a puppy to me. And it was like 145 pounds, and it felt like a puppy. And I walked in, and I was about to put the leash on, and he's lunging and lunging, but I'm like, you're not serious. You could
Right,
feel
right.
it was a puppy. And the doctor comes, and she sees her, she's like, nope, I'm not taking you to the hospital. I'm not taking you to the hospital. And she didn't let me. But yeah, some of them, and I tell this to clients too, like you said right now, I think we do have that intuition,
Right.
but we have stepped away from it because we start kind of like trying to put, instead of seeing the dogs for who they are, we start kind of like creating all these stories behind it.
Yeah.
So we miss some of those things, which I think we naturally have. Maybe we don't. Maybe there's some lucky people that get it, but I think everybody
To some
kind of
extent,
does.
I think everybody like
Yeah.
if I mean, that would be such a cool experiment to be able to put a bunch of people that
Yeah.
have no prior I mean, everybody knows what dog is, but
Yeah.
not really owning a dog, not
Yeah.
having any prior like solid interaction with dogs. And you know, kind of how they do the what is called those TV soap opera things with the, you know, when they put them together and let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Reality
yeah, yeah.
things, you know,
Yeah.
like do one like this with dogs. I mean, it can go sideways very
It would.
fast,
It totally would. It totally would. Oh my
but there will
God.
be a lot of priceless moments
Yeah,
to
yeah,
learn
yeah.
from,
I
you
mean, it
know.
sounds like a good show.
Let's put a bunch of guys and some
Yeah, a bunch of
different
dogs.
type of dogs, you know,
Yeah,
some
and
really
see what
shy
happens.
ones, some really
See who
whatever.
gets
It's
bits
like,
first. That's the elimination right there. Whoever gets bit first, you're out.
yes,
Oh.
that would be very cool.
But yeah, she was very, very good with allowing me to do things. Like she allowed me to, you know, give estimates to people while they were asking. Because one time I got yelled at by a customer. There was a customer that came in and we did everything, and then we gave the bill,
Oh
and
man, that's
and he
classic
was
shit.
pissed off. And so I was like, from now on, and I mean, if they boarded or anything, she would, you know, we would always do estimates that they sign, but just for appointments, we wouldn't. So
Right.
I just started like doing the estimates in the room, and then she made it into that's what we do. Now the tech would go in and give you exactly the price and everything. So she would just let me do stuff, which was super cool. It was
Man, the
during,
bills even then, but now it's like I don't know because we are so busy right now. If I ever even have a chance to tell you what's happening, but I mean Tina, she just got her second
oh yeah,
ACL
was that
surgery.
like $4,000?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean close to.
yeah,
Thankfully, we know people that know people, but
Yeah.
that's like, you know, like when I see the bill and it's like, oh my God,
oh yeah,
oh my, I mean how? And then a dog comes, kind of training, coning, and has this happy tail thing, like you saw her,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is a whole nother thing. I mean, maybe some a shot, whatever cortisone, some steroid, maybe it could kind of suit it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, okay, that's gonna end up being another at least 1,500 if we need to amputate.
Oh yeah.
And then today I have Melody take ice because he's something neurological. He's starting to get like kind of walking like he's drunk something. I'm like, oh man, what's happening? So
Yeah.
we take him. We did like already 2 different. So today was a third vet, like from one specialist to another. It's because something kind of, well, we don't know, but it's suspiciously something neurological.
Yeah.
Well, my latest estimate that just came, it starts from 5,500 and it can go to 8,500.
Oh, yeah, like MRI?
Right.
Oh wow.
And we still wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Talking about the insanity, and I don't know what's even now. You say you don't go often in Honduras, but I know if I take him to anywhere in Europe, forget about Eastern Europe, will be dirty cheap and still high quality everything. But anywhere in Europe, like the prices that we have here for vet bills, it's like off the charts. Like it's wrong. Like I don't know how they justify this.
It's a big business. I mean, it starts off from the vet school itself. You know,
Yeah.
like they're expensive. It's expensive. It's 4 years. I mean, it's a lot of work and they have to do that, but it's not something that is super accessible. You know, you're coming out with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. So, you know, I think it starts with that, and then.
But there is so much work, so much pets, you know, like I don't know, it's
Yeah.
8,000. I mean, okay, I will pay. Like if I have no choice, what am I gonna do? Not pay the 8,000? But how wrong is that? Like I just like, come on, people.
Yeah, it's not that accessible, for sure. People do swear by the insurances because, you know, they cover like 50% and all that. So
yeah,
but it's still $4,000.
Yeah, I think that's kind of.
Yeah.
I guess that's the game now. You have to have the insurance costs to justify somehow, and it does work, as you say, like in some cases.
Yeah.
I have it for some dogs, but I am not like Natalia. She's all good. She does all that. I'm like, if it happens, I'll deal with it. And here I am
And now
now.
you're complaining about it.
Oh my God. So did you ever thought of like really going up the ladder as far as like the vet stuff?
Yeah, I was going the whole time
Yeah.
for that. When I was working at the hospital, I loved the human interaction as part of it. I also I was good at restraining, but then when we did have like certain borders and things like that, like we had a Bouvier that was like aggressive towards people, but I could manage him. So then they eventually hired me to walk him, and then eventually they hired me to help them out because he wouldn't lunge when I had
Like the
him.
owners.
The owners, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Sorry,
so
that was
there
not
is
very
a
clear.
whole
Yeah, so like it was
deflection
through there.
from the.
So they hired me through there, and then that led to them recommending me to their friends to help train their puppies and things like that. And I was doing that on the
So
side.
that's how it happened.
So I started doing all that stuff, and I was gonna go. I'm still going, still planning vet school. I thought this dog thing, I just love it, but it was a hobby.
Right,
Know?
it's
I
a
never thought of
sidekick.
it as a. It'll never be my career. I just liked it,
Right.
and people seemed to like what I was doing, so I just kept doing it. And I was like crazy. I was working full time, going to school, doing the dog training on the side, and I eventually, when I transferred to NC State, I did 2 years, and I had transfer from Wake Tech, and so some of my classes were kind of like messed
So
up.
you were really seriously.
Yeah.
On
I was
the
going for
path.
zoology
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah, I have my
Very
bachelor's
cool.
degree, and my advisor told me if you apply to vet school, you're likely going to
You're
get
doing
in.
it.
And but on the last semester, I took this 1 credit class, which I thought it was the stupidest thing. I don't know if it was it was second to last semester. And it was this 1 credit class, and it was like a career class. You usually take it as a freshman, but because I was a transfer, some of my classes were reversed, and I had to take it. And I thought, this is ridiculous. They're making me pay money for something stupid. But one of the assignments was writing about your greatest accomplishments or something like that. And I could not write about anything else but dog training. So when I did that, I told my advisor, and she's like, why don't you give it a shot? So she got me in touch with Juan Galvez.
Wow.
And I tried to get, this is another story. I tried to get in touch with him, He would tell me, yeah, let's meet. For like 6 months, never. I could not meet him. He was so busy, and I couldn't meet him. And then one day, like a year later, or a year from the initial contact, he had a talk at NC State, and I had signed up for the zoology club because like they tell you to go to different clubs in the university, and I signed up, and I went the very first day on like the first 2 years that I went to school, and I signed up, and I went the very first day, and I never went again, but I kept getting the emails from them from the event. And one day I get an email, Juan Galvez is going to come talk. So I went there, and I asked questions. I asked all the questions while he was there. And then I went to introduce myself. I'm like, I'm Javier. I'm the guy that's been trying to chase you down for like a year. And so then after I graduated, I'm like, let me give it 2 years. And I worked with Juan for about a year. Some things happened where I had to, not with Juan, but like with my life, where I ended up having to leave. And I didn't think I was gonna go to continue training, but that wasn't the plan. But everything fell under my feet, and I was sort of forced into it. And I could have gone a different route, but my clients were like, which some of them became kind of like family.
Right.
They're our family now. And they were like, you should do it. You should try it and see what happens. And I did. And now it's been 9 years since that happened.
Wild.
So yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
And I mean, before you tell that story, like when I said I'm gonna be a dog trainer, my parents, they're like, yeah, whatever. Like you, I mean, yeah, sure, go. Thinking like there is no such thing as dog trainer. I mean, like you tell anybody at that time in Europe that you will make money to be a dog trainer. It's like, what are you gonna actually do?
Right? Yeah.
Even I mean, up to like very recently, maybe, I don't know, not that very recent, but my parents would be like, when are you gonna get a real job? Like you're getting old, like you need to settle. I'm like, Mom, I am paying everything for both of you from being a dog trainer. Like, shut up. Like, just accept. They could not accept it. Like, they just could not accept it. But that was that
The
European. I
mindset,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, this changed probably in the last 10 years, probably. And
Yeah.
even now, it's not
Yeah.
how it's in the States, you
Yeah.
know? Like, that's I guess we're blessed here that,
Yeah.
that's a different way of.
For
Like,
sure.
yeah, I remember. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be talking on the phone with them, and they're like, "So, how is everything? You should start looking for a job." Like, Jesus Christ! Like, come on.
Yeah.
And so then, what you started? You decided to just open
Yeah.
a business, or
Yeah.
or
I started. I started.
I mean,
You know,
that's a huge.
it
That's
was.
how
Yeah.
scary was that?
Super scary because I
Right.
had nothing at the time. You
Right.
know, right before that, I had 3 jobs. You know, and then right at that moment where everything fell under my feet or was pulling, whatever the expression is,
Yeah.
I had nothing, and I was like, let's give it a shot. And I did, thanks to my family pushing me. And in that sense, my parents were like really supportive with everything. Like, hey, do what you want, do what you love. So they were very supportive with all that stuff. And I started, I already had started the business with other clients, doing it on the side for several years by then. So they just started recommending me. I attended parties because they were very social, and I attended parties where they had a bunch of friends and stuff, and they hired me, and I
Right.
did, a lot of, training with. I mean, I started with difficult cases, dogs that were like aggressive towards other
But it's
dogs, really
crazy how
severe.
it works. Like, either something have to really disrupt the path that you were thinking that you were going on,
Oh yeah,
to force you to
yeah,
change,
yeah,
or you really have to be so, like, just committed and believing that is the path to where
Yeah.
you go all in.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people in that kind of crack the door open. Okay, I'm gonna be a dog trainer, and very quickly get scared. And I mean, for many different reasons, I guess, it's kind of, on the surface, it looks like, oh yeah, anybody, you
Yeah.
have a dog, I'm now a dog trainer. But like, to really become a dog trainer, there's like a lot of things. And that's another thing for Europe, when like, people are, and I know I have so many European friends, it just sounds so bad like this, but it's true. What, at least I think, they would rather have a very solid average job to some big company, being Porsche or Bosch or whatever, and they start there, and they're gonna get the pension there, and it's okay. And the fear of trying and failing,
Yeah.
it's incredibly powerful in there. To where here, it's almost like, if you don't try and you haven't failed, like, what are you doing? What's your life? Like, you should be experimenting, you should be trying something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a level of comfort in certain careers, the ones that
Right.
have their carved path,
Yeah.
versus a career that you have to carve it, where you have to kind of like do your follow a certain path that's not there, So I could see how a lot of people will fall into that. I would have
Right.
totally just stayed in that path,
Yeah.
because it was safer, it was
Right,
safer, especially,
right.
I would tell
But
someone,
that's the thing. Is it safer, really?
not for your soul.
It's like very crazy to I know, as when you work for yourself and you get a phone call, I want my dog trained, chances are 99.999% that you will say, of course, no matter how busy you are.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what,
Yeah.
you're, yes.
Yep. Yep.
And then I'm going to figure it out how it's going to happen.
Yep.
But saying no to a client
Mm-hmm.
when you work for yourself,
Yep.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
At
That's
least for me, it never
yeah.
was.
For
Right.
me, I think because my personality and what was reinforced in a Target,
Right.
even from then, I couldn't say no. I've had to be. My family has been telling me for a while, you got to start saying no at some point, So I'm definitely a little bit of a people pleaser, and like it's hard for me to say no, and not even thinking about just the business, but just my personality itself.
So let's go backwards. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start from where you are right now, because you have a really solid business going right now, and you just expanded.
Yeah.
And let's go back and tell me how it ended up there. But I think it's cool to like
Yeah.
at the moment where you guys are.
Yeah, so like, oh, you're saying like talk about where we are right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
so right now we have, we're at a facility that is about 7,000 square feet right now. We just recently expanded to like 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But I'm subleasing part of it to a groomer, and then the rest of it I'm using it as part of it will be for training, and I'm trying to integrate now group classes because we have more space.
Yeah.
And the other part we're using it for kennel, and hopefully we're going to expand the kennel a little bit more. We on a daily basis we see 40 to 60 dogs.
How many people staff?
I have about 26 employees.
Yeah.
And they have different shifts and everything.
And
but
that's kind of your people skills, probably, because having to have 20 something people to work
Yeah.
for you, that's also
It's tough. I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm even good at that. I'm
Yeah.
constantly trying to, I'm probably more a micromanager, where I'm like, which is probably not good, but I try to let them know what's needed, the big picture.
Right.
But then I'm constantly like, did you do this? Did you do this? So I try my best, and I try to, I want them to like,
let them do right.
I try. Yeah. I try to do that. And I try to, be, not be too annoying to them, but I want them to enjoy what they're doing, and I also want them to do the best that they can do. But yeah, I don't know if I'm good at it. I probably not, but I try. I try my best.
But that's, I mean, it's sometimes the need.
Yeah.
You have to start to be right. Like me, I remember myself. Man, that's when eventually, like people started to want to hear me, what I have to say about dog training. And it became progressively, like very quickly, to where I had to speak in front of people. And that was not me.
Really?
Oh my God, that was, it sounds
it's
wrong,
crazy.
right?
It's great to hear
I
it,
feel
because
so
you seem
comfortable.
so confident in everything.
I am. And I tell you, there was and I just listened to this or watched it. It was a podcast with Tony Robbins and Jordan Peterson. It just came out. Very cool one.
I gotta listen to it.
Very, very, very cool one. Like, highly recommended.
Yeah.
And I don't know who was talking to whatever, but there was a moment, because they are both like very gifted in like so many areas, but like speaking especially. And one of them was like, the moment you stop looking at the crowd as one unit, but you actually look and see people and you talk to the people. And I was like, fuck, that's exactly what happened. That's it. Like, I've never really put it in the words this way, but that's exactly how it changed for me, like overnight.
Wow.
Because, it's like this stage fright, like you just see a bunch of people and it's like, whoa, and you feel out of place,
intimidating,
And the moment you just do this, it's like, boom. Well, at least that was for me. I don't know. I mean, I guess.
No, I'm actually glad that we're having this, because I've done group lessons and things like that with my like graduates for like board and train programs. But I'm gonna start doing it for the public.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're talking about this, because that is that is a something that I'll definitely
But there
focus
are
on.
things that we need to learn. There is, we
Yeah.
are always good at something, and then who knows? Primax principle, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
maybe the one that we're not, or at least we didn't think we're good at, maybe it becomes even, you get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be, for sure. I felt like I did experience that a little bit. You know how I told you earlier that I was avoiding that literature course. So in that literature course, I started like really trying my best to do well in that class, and I started reading it and trying really hard, and I had so much trouble. And then I started appreciating certain aspects of it. And sadly, I didn't continue it just because of the nature of like what I actually do.
Right.
But I started seeing, because before that class, I was like, I don't see how people go to school to study literature. This
Right.
is ridiculous. And then I would just start seeing the value within it of like things like, you know,
It's
they would
language.
look at a they would
I
look
mean,
at a
it's
study. I
language.
mean, they would look at a story made, even if it was fake or whatever, but they would notice the influences by analyzing. They would notice the influences of the time. So
Right.
like they could tell, okay, during this time there was a time of war, and that's why this person wrote the way that they were writing. So it was really cool, kind of like diving into how you think and how you analyze something. So I've always, after that, I believed a little bit in scrutiny. Really scrutinizing something starts showing a little bit of the magic within it. Because if you, a lot of times you see stuff from the outside, and religion's one that, for a long time as a kid, I guess kind of rebelled against religion. I was raised a Catholic, then went to different churches, to a Mormon
Yeah,
church and all
yeah,
that
it
stuff.
didn't make sense.
Yeah, and then I like stopped, and then now I'm starting to see there is something to it,
Right.
even if it's not everything how, and I know it can be used for power, and I know everything that people can see that uses power will be corrupted, but there is still value
For
to
sure.
those things. So I think like it's just really cool to see the magic in different things, even things that you don't understand, but when people dive into it, it starts getting pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, literature, language. I
Yeah.
mean, language is like, yeah, even to just watching what's happening with the AIs right now, and
Oh yeah.
it's just language, and language is not just like I mean, anything is basically language. Okay, I'm not gonna go there. This is too crazy, even for everybody right now. But so, how did you started? You got the business.
Yeah.
You started by okay. I'm
Yeah.
soldier of one, army
Yeah.
of one,
Yeah.
and ended up going to clients, or they bring dogs. You had did you have a garage with crates or no?
Yeah, I have a house. I had a house, and at one point we had like several dozens of
Right.
crates. We would use our like this table would be crate.
Yes.
We had like 3 dog crates, and we'd be
Yes.
eating on top of the crates. So because it was a
But
little
it's the
house.
exciting times, right?
Yeah, it was the very, very, when I look back, I look at it back with, being grateful and amazed at like what we did. Because like at that point, initially it was just me. And I was going to clients doing private lessons. And then at one pretty quickly, like a few months into it, I had like 7 dogs doing a board and train at the house. And it was
Were you
mostly me.
confident? Were you like,
I
were you
guess
having
so.
questions like, oh, would I be able to make this happen?
Yeah, I for some reason I
Trusted
was.
yourself.
For some
Good.
reason I was, and same as like what happened with that dog that they told me don't go touch her,
Right.
and I did, and
Right.
and that even with all the experience, I I still kind of question myself. Like recently, we had a 136-pound German Shepherd that was
Jesus.
snapping at the staff and everything, and like I would just go in and put the leash on, and it just felt, and I felt that way. That's
Yeah.
not something that has changed from the beginning.
Right.
So for some reason I was, and I don't know why exactly, but yeah, I was able to help a lot of people, and even people that had really serious dogs. There's some that I look back and I go, I could have done better.
Oh,
But
fuck.
a lot of that.
That's like, I mean, if that was not the case, I don't think you would be like the whole evolution and the interest to
That's
keep
true.
progressing would not be there.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's a given.
Yeah.
Like some people take it too hard, and I understand that, it's a bumpy road and doesn't have to be, but yeah.
Yeah, but
So then my guess is that the next big hump is the guts to hire a second trainer.
oh yeah, that was a tough one.
Like
But
I can imagine how that goes.
it started off pretty natural because of one thing. My brother, and I'm really bad with timelines, so I don't know what came first, but I think this came first. My brother came to the United States, and at the time, my family, they were having some economic issues, so they told me, well, you take care of them. So, and I had just started a business. I was not making much, and I brought my brother, and he was like kind of like the first person that became a trainer. And my ex, or my wife at the time, she helped me a lot. She didn't ever train, but she helped me with everything else, like cleaning and letting the dogs out, and picking up
Which
dogs,
is
and
quite important.
It was super important. And then it was the three of us. And then my brother-in-law would kind of come and help. So it became kind of like a family business.
So you started to, okay.
Yeah, it started
That's
like
a
that.
good way to use it in.
Then my brother got married, and then we had his wife helping us out too. And like we were in a 1100.
Damn, I wish I was for alone forever.
Really?
That was good way.
I was lucky. When I look back,
like pretty
I'm
much
lucky.
everybody that, like all of my really true good friends, they were not dog people. And we just accepted each other for who we are. And I mean, to them was super interesting, the whole dog thing.
Yeah.
But there was a line in the sand that they were like, okay, now Ivan has to go and walk the dogs or whatever.
Yeah. No, I got super lucky. And I was able to. That little house is a 1,100 square foot house. My ex lives there still, and like it's I love that house. Every time I go there, I feel like this, like, I don't know, this appreciation, this respect for it.
I have this too.
Yeah.
I know this.
Yeah, and they started that, and then I was starting to get convinced to hire actual, like employees, and that was really rough because I was like, they're not gonna train like I do. They're gonna mess everything up.
And then there is the whole thing of learning how to pay somebody and how to deal with like actual. It's not you.
No, there was a lot of that, and but we did it. Once we got to after a year or so of working just with the family, they were like, you gotta hire someone. We're too busy. So we're filling up this 1,100 square foot house, and with 4 people living in it, and a ton of dogs,
Right.
and it was a lot. And in a neighborhood too. It wasn't even like a big property. And we were working. We would wake up at 6 a.m. and start working training. I did respect, like almost like a religious thing. I respect my nap time. At between 1 and 3, I would take a nap.
Wow.
And I respected that.
That's so good.
But then we would continue training or working or letting them, whatever. Thank you so much.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. And we would do it until 11 p.m. And every day it was the same thing. And we were just looking back, we were just eating junk food. We would go, and back then there was a dollar menu. So we would go to any place, get dollar menu, get a bag, and the whole family would just grab some things from the bag. And it was crazy. And like at that time, I could barely sleep because like I'd be sleeping, but we had 20 dogs in the house, 30 dogs in the house. And I would hear like, and I would wake up. Like, who is that? What's that? So it was really, really stressful times, but it was kind of beautiful times at the same time because there was so much passion and drive.
Times. Yes, this is where the excitement can override the struggles and the hardcore times. And
because it was quite a struggle. But after a year or so of that, then I started hiring people, and I'm glad that I did because I was able to, one of the trainers at the time, now she's doing her own thing with doing this adventures with dogs and stuff. And another one is in Tennessee doing training. So it is cool that, to see everybody growing, and, and also when they were helping me out, I noticed something that I did not think about before. Like I was just worried I'm going to have somebody and they're going to dilute the sort of results. And
Right. Oh, that's like a given.
yeah,
That's like, as long as you care about what you do, the hardest thing probably is to delegate eventually.
yes,
Like, it's just a
yeah,
nightmare.
yeah. And I was so worried about that, but it helps so much in the transfer to the owners. Because when we would start transferring to the owners, if I did it just myself, they got used to my voice, they got used to
Right.
everything, that
The
they would do perfect for me.
generalization of there.
Yeah. And then back to the
Smart.
owner, it wasn't as good. And then
Smart.
like once the trainers came in, it was a game changer. I'm like, oh, it's transferring so much better
Yes.
now. So that was nice. That was a nice aspect of it, and having help and just going through, especially the early employees, they saw the struggle. My newer ones, I mean, it gets busy. It gets busy, and they work really, really hard. But they haven't seen like the actual, first 2-3 years of the
Yeah.
business. That was something else. Everybody makes fun of me because how much I work.
Was
and how
it
much,
always word of mouth? Like, how did you advertise?
99% of it.
Yeah.
99% of it. I've a couple of times. I think I've spent on Facebook ads. I've spent $30 maybe
Right.
50.
That's the beautiful thing about dog trainer,
Yeah.
especially. I mean, you have to. I don't know. I was gonna say you have to be good at it, but then there's so many that are not, and it still somehow pull it through. But being a dog trainer, you're out and about. There's like, and then you have your clients, but
Yeah.
then you're out with the dogs, and it's like, even if somebody doesn't have a dog, it's like, oh, my friend has the dog that needs help, or
Yeah.
there is always that conversation that
yeah.
happens daily.
Yeah, for sure. I think that one of the things that has helped us a lot, besides what you mentioned earlier, not saying no, always
Right.
saying yes to everything. That's a big one. But I always felt, I always believed in what I said, and so I was very genuine about it, and I didn't try to BS anybody. I never learned a spiel, I never learned a thing to sell
The
to
word
clients.
salad, yeah.
No, I never learned any of that stuff. I didn't want to be a salesman, even though it kind of became that, but not because I'm wanting to sell stuff. It's because I just believe what I'm telling
The dog
you.
owners actually recognize that
Yeah, I think people
genuinity,
pick up. Yeah.
Absolutely do.
So I think that that's one of the that has helped us grow quite a bit. But we still go through ups and downs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
How was COVID? Was that scary?
very scary. Very
Did
scary.
you
We
shut
closed down.
You
We
did?
closed down for 3 months.
Shit. Oh, fuck.
We closed down for 3 months, but sort of closed down. So we closed down for all my employees. There was one who I can't remember exactly what the details were.
Hold
but
on,
he
is that
couldn't.
when you came to the school or no?
It was after, a little bit after. I was
Okay.
the second school. I mean,
Okay.
that's the second
Okay.
year, I think. Yeah, when we did when COVID happened, in order to pay bills, I think I had to do 6 dogs a month or something like that, or 7 dogs a month to pay the bills, taking away payroll. And I'm like, I need to do this.
Somehow has to happen.
And
Oh, wow.
thankfully I did. I went to appointments, and I would meet people outside with masks and stuff. And then
Man, what a time that was.
it was, and I do remember when things started opening up. Later on, things started opening up, and I remember driving, because I had gotten used to driving with no traffic, which that was a nice part of
Right.
it. But I was driving, and I didn't think it had affected me much. And then when I drove and I saw people sitting outside in a restaurant, and I felt this kind of like relief, this joy, like things are
All of a sudden
are
you
coming
can
back.
see the sun. The sun is out.
Yeah. But
Right?
it's to me, looking back, I'm like, why did I feel like that? But it was just, I guess I did like that,
Right.
normal part of life. I didn't like it to be just everybody isolated. So yeah, it was rough, but we were able to manage fine.
Florida, we were so blessed.
Yeah, because you got sitting close,
It
didn't you?
was absolutely the best place on earth.
Huh.
Maybe besides Sweden or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like, no, we were, I mean, we freaked out for a moment, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm like going to the grocery store, coming back home, and I'm washing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
vegetables with soap. I'm like, this is not gonna work,
Yeah.
and this cannot just last. Like this can, I mean, we will be dead.
Yeah.
I'm not washing every
Every
I
vegetable.
mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then little by, I mean, very quickly, like, and I'm sure there was some risk to it, but Florida was by far the place to be. I mean, by far, like and especially, having the space and so we really didn't, I mean, besides going out and wearing a mask,
Yeah.
the planes was the most ridiculous
Yeah.
thing,
That's
man.
annoying.
It's like, okay, now you guys eat. Take the mask. You eat. Okay, now put the mask. What the fuck are we doing? Like, how retarded we can be, all of us collectively. Like, what are we doing?
That is exactly what
Jesus
happened.
Christ.
That is exactly what happened with my brother. He was being super protective of my mom and my stepdad. They came to visit and they got stuck because Honduras closed. So like you couldn't fly to Honduras.
Right.
So they got stuck in the U.S. and they were with us during that time. I think I had another house at that point. So they were with my brother and his wife. And he was taking care of them. We wouldn't see them for a while. They were constantly wearing masks, and he was super strict. He's a lawyer, so like he was like super strict, following every single rule. And then one day we go out to once things start opening up, we go out to a restaurant, and he comes in later on, and everybody's sitting down, like you said, no mask on, eating with another group of people there. And he's like, what the hell is this? I've been working so hard to keep you guys away, and now we're just eating. So he just found it ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a funny thing.
It's just really, really a nightmare. And I mean, man, like how many people died and couldn't even say goodbye to their
Yeah.
relatives because
so terrible.
like through glasses and fucking like
Yeah.
just bad times.
Yeah, it was.
Like we are living into, I mean, having COVID, having the whole AI revolution. I mean, having just the internet period. Like we're in this like what we are experiencing, it's crazy.
quite a revolution.
It's crazy in so many ways.
Yeah.
And then TWC somehow came along.
Yeah, TWC
By the
came.
way, I tell you, just a quick one with COVID, because of the TWC. So we were going to have the first class, and we're starting, and we actually will have it here, and restrictions are coming. Just talking about coming, right? There is this guy, his name's Bart from Belgium. I just saw him in UK. He's gonna come for the helper workshop. He flies. He's like, I'm doing this. I'm gonna come here before they lock it. So he comes here, and now they're talking really lockdowns. And now he's like, but I also have to get back.
My goodness.
And now he's got to work it out how to get back.
Wow.
I mean, it was this craziness,
That
like
is.
absolutely
That
craziness.
is. Yeah, it was a different time for sure.
I mean, I have so many, like especially, I mean, my daughter, she's German, American, German, whatever you want, yeah. I mean, she, like in Germany, they had to have like 3, 4, 5 shots.
Wow.
Like you cannot, like in Germany, you cannot not have them.
Yeah.
Like you just cannot, And being 19 years old, having 5 shots,
Unknown substance at
right?
the time. Yeah.
A girl, like, oh man.
Wow.
But anyway, so.
Yeah. So after COVID, we were doing fine, and we moved to different places. I got almost kicked out of that house after 2 years. Not kicked out of the house itself, but the business could not go there. So then we were scrambling on where to go. Eventually, we found this house where COVID happened and I was at a house with a bigger property. And then after that, we found this building, and TWC came.
You're renting it, right?
Yeah,
or
we're
you're
leasing.
owning it?
Yep, no, we're leasing
Renting.
it. Yeah. Hopefully after this 5 years, hopefully we try to find something. I don't think my landlord would be selling it anytime because it's attached
But I
to
think
different
right now,
parts.
from what I'm just kind of following real estate stuff, right now seems to be a good time.
Yeah, we'll see. I have a 5-year lease. I don't know if I have the money for that. But yeah, so TWC came about with, I followed you for a while before TWC. I think I had pretty much all the videos. I had done the train per view stuff.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you did a year with Juan.
Oh
and
yeah.
I mean,
I had done, yeah. So there was a lot of, I had really been exposed to you quite a bit. So I was interested in that. And there was, even though I was doing good, I was doing well with training dogs.
Right.
I could get results, and even with difficult dogs, there was something missing. And I think I don't know, maybe it's a feeling that we should always have, like there's something missing, like there's more out there. But it just didn't, some things were just not right. And I had shifted a lot of how I trained already, but I kept just diving into different things. Like I did the whole, low level stimulation conditioning stuff. So I did some of that, and some of it made sense to me at the time. Like Tyler Mudo had some really good videos on the e-collar conditioning, and backwards conditioning and stuff, and it all made sense. And I did it, and it kind of worked. And but then it's
not that it doesn't work.
Correct.
Right? It's not that it doesn't work.
It's missing something. Yeah, it's just like it's not right. At least in not every aspect. I think there is I don't know if this is against TWC, but I think there are times where like some backwards conditioning can be necessary, especially when you have a dog that, I don't know, with like some crazy sensitivity to the e-collar, with like, it's like, okay, you can't use it in a standard way. Does it make sense to kind of help them kind of understand, okay, when you feel this, like you do this? I have found that sometimes I
see what you. Yeah, I mean, it's not even backwards. It's just just negative reinforcement, but starting with the versive first, right?
Correct.
That's what you mean. Yeah.
So it is basically that, and but I had done a bunch of different things, and it just didn't feel right. I'm like, okay, let's see. I've been following you for a while. I like what you do. What can I learn from TWC? And I thought about it. I almost went to Tar Heel Canine, and I actually
because it's right there.
Yeah,
too.
it's right
I mean,
there.
that's so convenient.
So I thought about that, but it was a little impractical because I think they required you to stay there for 4 months and stuff, and so it was going to be a little bit impractical. Me already running a business. So I thought, and I actually told Gene, my friend, Gene Bailiff, and he's like, dude, Ivan's gonna show you a bunch of stuff that like you're not gonna see anywhere else. And I'm like, okay. So I applied, and it was great. It definitely, but it was great in different levels that I didn't realize right away. Like when I was taking the classes, I'm like, I love this. This is great. But I had seen a lot of that stuff. When I did my zoology degree.
Yeah, it got to simmer sometime, right?
Yeah, it definitely needed that for sure, because I had seen some of that, and I had taken behavioral animal behavior classes. I had taken psychology classes, so I had
it's not foreign.
Yeah, a lot of it I had seen it already, and I had read about it, and so it didn't seem like too different, like I was learning something completely new.
Right.
Then the play, I had seen some of your videos before, and I had already done some of that, and I thought there's where is the magic? But it was so well put together that I'm like, this is worth it anyway, even if I'm not learning anything completely new. But then as I started applying it and using it, man, it was magic. That's where I started like really believing in this is one of the pieces that I definitely have been missing.
It's interesting. Like I know, and I mean, not selling, but it like dogs' eyes change. Like there is a moment when they're like, hey.
Yeah.
And there's this like, even in an old dog, this kind of friendly, playful, like,
Yeah.
hey. And
Yeah.
you see it right away. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
I tell my trainers and clients all the time about that, that moment where the dogs kind of show you,
right.
like not when we show them, because a lot of times as trainers we think the magic moment is when we show them, but no, it's like the moments where they show you. I think I got it. That's such a beautiful moment for sure.
Yeah, because as a trainer, so easy to be, I am looking down on you
To
and you're
impose,
doing
yeah,
things for me. And yes, I love you. And yes, you eat. But yeah,
yeah.
how did the dog sport come? Like how did the whole Mondio, whatever,
Yeah,
where did
yeah.
that come in place?
Well, I got a little bit exposed to it when I was working with one.
Yeah.
And they would put me in a suit sometimes and get me bit, and then I found it super cool. I like dogs in general, and I found it super cool. I still found behavioral things a little bit more interesting. So if we were working with an aggressive dog, I found that more interesting than the sport itself. I hadn't seen like the building part and all that.
Right.
So you're good.
Let's just
It's,
going.
it smells like Christmas.
Gotta tell that story.
But so I had been exposed to it, but I wasn't really that interested at the time. Then later on, I had a Malinois for a while, and I think it was when I was taking. It was during TWC when I was taking the course. I still had that Malinois. Never did a sport with him. I was mostly afraid, one, because of the business and all that, but I could have made time. The other one that scared me was I did not know if you could fix this, but he would bite with his front teeth. So I always worried that because he was like 80 pounds Malinois, and like I felt like he was gonna break his canines at some point.
It does happen.
Yeah,
It's
and he was so driven that like you throw a ball into cactus and he would go face first, scream, but he would still get it. So I'm like, he's gonna break his teeth. So I was always afraid that he was gonna mess up. So I never pushed that hard, but that sparked a little bit of interest, his drive and stuff. And I did get him because he had bit 3 people by the time he was 11 months old. So it started off with
the
that.
dog trainer's dog.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what it was. But he was an amazing dog. Actually, he inspired one of my trainers to get a Malinois too, because he was such a cool dog. But he passed away. At 7, he had like this pancreatic cancer that spread everywhere.
These are tough.
Yeah, it was terrible because he had like, I think it was like 100 or something like that, 1 millimeter nodules all over his lungs.
You know what is crazy,
everywhere.
and you've been in the vet industry, but like what always kind of amazes me that they're in pain when they get this lumps in their body, like there's gotta be pain, but somehow they are so contained and like act like there is that, like it's not, but it's there. It's amazing how they make this.
It is.
Is it like just nature that they're not afraid to give it away because of the other
that's
dogs
what the vet used to tell me.
Tag them and
it's
the weaker of the right.
That's exactly what the vet used to say. She would tell me that cats or dogs sometimes they just really hide the discomfort because it makes them vulnerable. So then there's that natural instinct. I think with Malinois it's not that. I think it's just they just like have bigger, greater motivation. He played until the day he died. I have videos of him like still tugging while he was like still, you could hear his breathing. And so it was, I think Malinois is that desire, but in general, like predators, apparently they just kind of hide that weakness. Apparently with cats, it's very difficult to diagnose certain things because they won't show you.
Right. They just want to nail you anyway.
Yeah.
You don't know why. It's like, no, I'm already looking at you.
You just attribute it to them being a cat.
I remember, man, working when I was working at the SPCA in San Francisco, and we also had to take cats, and we had a whole cat section,
Yeah.
It was way more challenging than the dogs.
Yeah,
Because it's just like you see them, and you see the pupils are kind of, and you're like, okay, are you just want to, like, and I was master with, like you would have the gloves and stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
nothing.
You
Like
do
I
like good
was the
scruffing?
best with the towel.
Oh, a
Like
towel.
just give me
Yeah.
a towel.
Oh man, cats are something else
They're
for sure.
different,
Yeah, they just have so many
and they're
weapons, you know?
fast, and they're just
They can bite you, they can
and when
scratch
they
you.
when they don't want to just kind of bite to get away, but they want to like stay with you.
Oh yeah. Oh, when they grab you and they
Right,
kick.
right.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's something else. That's why, like, I don't know why you wanted to see a panther in here. That's not. I don't want to see that. If I see that, I'm calling you, Ivan.
Right.
Get the gun. No, that's crazy. But he passed away, and then John Lugo, my friend, he reached out. I actually put him down at this.
That's the guys you're
Yeah,
training right now
yeah.
with. Yeah.
So and that's how I met him too. I put Turkey down, and I put him down at this animal hospital where John's girlfriend works. So she told him about me, and then he sent me a message, and he sent me a message, telling me that he does Mondioring. If I was interested. At that point, I had already put a deposit for a dog here, because I think he had a litter of puppies. So I wasn't able to take one, but he said, like, it doesn't matter. When you get your puppy, just, come and start training. So, yeah, that's kind of how it started. So John kind of like introduced me to it.
So kind
some
of
more.
like with the dog business. I mean,
Yeah.
very steady, progressively
Yeah.
getting your feet in. And
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how it's
so,
been.
what do you like in Mondio? What is like
What do I like in Mondio?
what is the, you know, what challenging, what is the thing that you catch yourself thinking about often?
Yeah. So at the beginning, it was definitely, how do I train this? And a lot of it was, working.
Because it's so many things,
Yeah,
right?
there's
It's
a bunch
just
of
like
different.
fucking a lot
Yeah.
of things.
So
Where do you start?
There is. And I was so excited, like, whenever you would show little thing, I've come to a bunch of the seminars. So one of them, the Orvetasha one, and you were doing a little bit of, I think Julie was doing some object guard. With
Yeah, we were just
was it
starting.
miso or
Yes.
something like that? Yeah,
Yes. Dim
and
sum.
dim sum. There you go.
Yeah.
And she was starting that, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. So I kind of started creating that a little bit, and just learning the teaching, how to teach the dog certain things. Because when Juan and Jean were doing it, their dogs were already trained. I was
Right.
just there getting bit, so I didn't see the teaching part. And that part was definitely super exciting. Now that we've kind of like taught a lot of the things, and now we're just practicing. Now is figuring out, how do I help her do it herself in these situations? Because like the cool thing about it is like Mondioring leaves a lot into the dog, because you can't be guiding them. I guess like a PSA, you might be able to guide them and stuff, but you can't guide them at all. So you leave it up to the dog. So figuring out how do I allow the dog to think and figure this puzzle herself with the rules that we have kind of taught her. So I think that part is what keeps me kind of interested in it.
What do you see as far as the how does the sport and the pet world help each other if they do?
Initially, the way that I was training, it was very different. Where like the sport and the pet world would not cross.
Yeah.
It was a lot of like the pet dogs, you have to bring them down. You kind of like calm them down. You kind of chill them out, and if you calm them down, people are happy. And sadly, that is a little bit of the truth. It's people were happy, but not the dogs,
Right.
and it was a lot of that. And then eventually the dogs learned to adapt, and a lot of them can still thrive, but that's where there was a better way. And I think you've brought that, is how the sports and the pet world come together is bringing up that motivation and kind of guiding through motivation. Because when I'm teaching Jinx how to, figure out this puzzle on the defensive handler, I need her to be motivated to want to like follow. I mean, to know which one's going to do something, what's going to happen. I can't just like bring her down. And I think in the pet world, it comes very similar. It happens very similar. I want them to want to do this stuff with me, not just like do it like, sir, yes, sir. At some point, there is some sir, yes, sir, but I want them to have that motivation. And I think that's how those come together.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I have I mean, I've kind of went the same, like, eventually, like at TWC, how highly I recommend that even if you're a professional trainer and you're not exposed to sport training, like you are missing out.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea how much you're missing out. And one of the things, and again, I know you've heard me talk about this, but I think it's good to keep saying it, is when you train, let's say you have a dog that you're training for competition, that means you're training that dog, let's say you started training whatever young age, you pick 8 weeks, 3 months, whatever, but now the dog is 5 years old and you're still training. Even though you may be competing, you're still training. And when you realize how much time in training is invested and how much change has happened and where you are with that dog just because of that time, and then you take that little snippet of being a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of pet training, and you think like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And at the same time, of course, you know, some things have to be done, but that's not really the end of like going through a basic training. It's just, you just open the door of what can happen, you know?
Yeah. And there is a problem on really thinking, and I still do some shorter ones. I do some like a 2-week obedience, but that one we don't do that for behavior modification stuff. But I had a client recently who had a trainer that did like a 10-day or 2-week thing with her dog, and she said my dog was trained after that, and now the dog is like maybe 7 or 8, and I'm like, okay, how's she doing now? And she's like, well, she pulls on a leash, she lunges the dog, she does all these things. I'm like, I thought you said you sent her to a 2-week, because she's sending me the young one, and she wants him to be trained the same way in that short amount of time. And then I'm like, your dog is not, trained. That yes, you got some results there because the dog was a little bit calmed down and suppressed a little bit, but what I'm trying to show you is something that will, a certain relationship and obedience that will last longer because of the things that you do. And I kept talking to her to playing. She has a what are these dogs? Griffons.
Cool
and like she plays with, and he's super driven to play. And I'm like, play with him, and she's like, but I want him to walk nice. I'm like, that is like, we'll get there, but that's like secondary. If you play and you walk, look, he's gonna want to do stuff with you.
To get
it is because especially because like we're selling, and I say we because I have done that too. These like 2-week programs with you're like, hey, your dog's gonna be fixed. I'm like, no, it's now when I'm selling a 2-week program, I'm not telling them, hey, your dog is never gonna be trained.
At best, it's your starter kit.
Correct.
Right?
That is exactly what I tell them. Yeah, we're gonna be doing refreshers. We're gonna be doing all these things. I'm gonna be supporting you. So yeah, that's just the beginning of it. So and I'm trying to get that in people's heads, because you send them to a typical franchise and you do a 2-week program. Now you have an off-leash trained dog, and you're like, it's done. I'm like, no, you're just starting. Especially if you started off with the dog kind of like that. Wait until they actually get up in their energy, and you might not have the same level of control if you allow them to go there. So it'd be better if you teach them how to cooperate at that heightened state.
Right.
And then everything else happens a lot easier if you teach them how to cooperate when they get into that state. Because that's when people lose control. You can go to a PetSmart class And if you calm your dog down and they're focused on the treat,
Man,
you can do it.
When was the last time you've taken a peek at the PetSmart? I haven't looked at them. I used to kind of go at PetSmart and just be like really to like look like this to see. I haven't done it in very long time, but I wonder if they've changed anything.
You know, I don't think so because again, another one of those things that earlier we talked about regulation and things like that, because everything has to be so standardized and regulated that they can't go within certain, you know, they have to stay within
they
those
have
circle.
a book
that
says
have that.
week 1, everybody lined up and we are giving click and treat.
Yeah, because I've had people from PetSmart recommend me, and that like I get a client and they're like, oh, I went to PetSmart and this person recommended you, because they said they couldn't, like they know what they need, but they couldn't because they work there. So I don't think it has changed much.
I'm gonna go. I mean, I
Sign
I
up
go like, oh, there is always a dog to take to PetSmart and Lowe's or whatever, right? I have to go and check them out. Typically, man, I wonder if they even have it, and maybe they don't have it anymore at our local PetSmart, because it should draw my attention.
Yeah, they might.
Because I see their grooming, you know, how the open glass and everything, which is cool to have like that instead of let me take your dog inside. It's like, man, oh. I mean, they can be the best groomers, but that whole idea of let me take him inside. And sometimes, of course, the dogs act way better when they're not clinched in, like looking at, but
a German
I
Shepherd
don't know.
would, you know, act better.
Yeah, kind of like the white one.
Barney,
He would be the one to take
inside. You take him away from the parents right away. Nah.
What about the how are you navigating the whole landscape with the force free and like your clients when some I mean I typically, at least for us, it's very standard. It's like what tools are you using? I'm like, oh, here we go. okay, we're gonna have that conversation. How is it up there?
It almost seems like the past year or so, or 2 years, it's there's more questions about that, and I'm not sure. Maybe the amount of people that were already fine with aversives came early on, and now I'm getting a lot of people that are not getting help elsewhere, but they are not really understanding aversives yet. But lately, it seems like it is a more frequently asked question. Back, initially, I would talk to people about it, but nobody was sort of questioning it too much. It was more of like, okay, I trust you. My friend used to, so I trust this. Now it seems like people are sending information. Maybe it's just because we've grown and we're getting different. It's not just friend referrals, but like now they've heard of proactive dog training and stuff. So I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason we're getting more.
That's probably what it is. That's exactly what it is.
So we get the calls and like the emails all the time asking about it, and I'm honest right away. I tell them, we use the tools. We don't have to, but we can. If we're gonna do something more serious, like then I would prefer, it would be highly recommended to use it, and not for necessarily just bad dogs, but even a dog that's like super friendly and everything, but takes off running away from the house all the time. I'm like, how can you not? We need to use that for that specific dog. So we do have that conversation with people all the time. And again, I don't memorize any spiels or anything. I don't have a specific thing that I say.
And that's
I just have a conversation with the people, ask them what they know, and if they ask me, what are your thoughts on it? And I tell them like, hey, I use it all the time. I take my dog off leash when I'm riding the bicycle, and and she's fine. So I explain all the things.
Like we had I think it was about five years now, there was a very sneaky push here in I mean, the hearings were in Tampa. I don't know if it was the whole Florida or was it just like Hillsborough County, but they were pushing to ban electric collars, prong collars, the whole thing. And the trainers, kind of got together and we went to the hearings and we stopped it. I mean, it was easy to stop because, the moment the politicians see that not everybody is in agreement and there is actually equal amount of people in disagreement, they don't want to take. That's like the worst thing for politicians to take side in that kind of war. So they decided, it was interesting. It was actually very cool, and it's worth it to, I always think to do something about this. But what they decided to do was somehow in the conversation came that the trainers like me are not open with their clients, and so I would do something that the client doesn't know, and what if they don't agree with that? So every company, every pet training company at least in Hillsborough, and I believe it was most of Florida, had to have training plans. And if there was change in the training plan and it's signed by the client, yes, I am fine to use whatever with my dog, or I'm not. And then if we need to update it 2 weeks from now, then we do. But those got collected.
Oh, wow.
And I think they got collected like for at least year and a half we were doing this.
Wow.
So there is
work.
yes, and of course there is nobody to go through this. Who's gonna do that?
Well, that's the work that
right?
I'm talking about.
Right?
Who's doing
it's just kind of, let's wash our hands. We're doing something very good. It's like, but there is a database collected sitting there that there's like so many different pet businesses and so many tools used. What's the ratio? What's the abuse? How many? That, like you can just, especially now with the AI abilities, you can just like instantly. So everyone, like right now I get excited. I'm like thinking I'm gonna go and see if I can get the data.
Yeah.
Now, of course, tomorrow the project that we have here takes over and it's not gonna happen. But that was an interesting time, and in some ways that's pretty much how you would do it if you are legit business, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then you just start doing shit to the dog that, like, that's just not right. Like, how, why?
No.
But how, like another question that I always ask, especially people professional trainers, how much resistance or how much conversation has to take place on average to convince somebody that might be a good thing to try with their dog?
So on average, I mean, it depends. So you have the people that are truly against it, and they are on their last sort of attempt. They have tried positive only. They tried drugging their dogs. They've tried, all the things that were recommended by, the leaders in the force-free field, and now they're lost, and they're like, I don't want to use any collar, but my vet's telling me to put him down. You know, so there's those that are they're totally against it, but they're on the last sort of leg. So
this is kind of like when somebody family member is dying out of cancer, and they would do any voodoo shit that comes across, and it's totally okay at that point.
So those are, it's not that long. You just explain it, and they're like, you know what, it makes sense. Nobody explained it that way, and then we move on. Then there are some that have a puppy or something, and like they had a very easy dog prior, and it's just a little bit more complicated, more high energy puppy that they're having a little bit more trouble. They had such an easy time with the previous one, especially if they had certain trainers, but they heard about us, and the friend kind of like told them about us, and they're like, I want you to train my puppy, but I'm against these tools. So then those are longer conversations. I talk to them, and it's not like I'm trying to convince everybody. We've done plenty of dogs without tools and stuff. But I do try to like illustrate the benefits of it, where
I
so
mean,
they
you're
truly.
putting it on the table. It's up
I
to
am
them if
correct.
they, right.
Yeah. So those take a little bit longer conversations for sure. It depends on the people. And there are
Right.
some that will call and they will just say, "Do you use shock collars?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then they, okay, thank you very much, and they just move on. And there's
Yeah.
no conversation even started. But once we start a conversation, it just depends on where they are in their mindset, how much they've tried,
Yes.
and how much they think they need that or not.
And if they've
So
already given up or they still have
correct.
that hope that, right, there is a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's super. This is kind of interesting. Always this specific conversation we're having at the moment. There are times when I know, and these are the times that is just very difficult for me because I know that I can. This is not even. This is like not even complicated. This is like very simple, straightforward. We can take care of this, but you're not allowing me, and I am looking at the dog. It's gonna walk away, and I know where it's gonna go, and it's. And so I always have this last three. So I mean that has not happened like this,
Yeah.
like probably handful
Yeah.
at best. But I would be like, how about you just give me 5 minutes
Yeah.
with the dog, and you're right here.
Yep.
You can just terminate it the moment you say done. We're done.
Yep.
Like it doesn't need like the moment you start to feel that things are going, not that we're.
Yeah.
It's done. And every single time it's been like, oh, okay.
I don't know it's gonna be
Like,
that way.
oh. And I'm not, I definitely don't want to say that it's like justified in any case and use it in any way you want to, but because it can be wrong,
Yeah.
of course. But the information that the social media is flooded with, it's just so misguided, so misleading that it's very hard to be a pet owner and having a difficult dog to, you don't know, so you're listening to bunch of totally contradicting, it's like, how do you make a decision when you don't know?
Yeah.
And what do you think about regulations now that we are there?
Yeah. Regulations, they the problem with regulation, I guess, is that it puts too much. When you start regulation, I think it leads to more than what it was originally intended to. So even if it's not a ban, let's say it is just regulating certain things, and especially like now my brother's a lawyer, so when he starts explaining stuff, how like the language, how things can be like changed and interpreted a certain way depending on the language, there's like so much that can be done that leads to bans because of an original regulation.
Yeah.
So while like it does make sense, it does make total sense that what if we have a tool like that, why don't we regulate it for just professionals to be able to use it and then show the people, and then now people know how to use it. It makes total sense. But when you start kind of looking at legal stuff, then it can lead to, it started with regulation, and it started with just being able to show to the professionals, to show, a certified professional is able to show someone, but then you have to look into what does it take to become a certified professional?
Right.
What are all these other
who
things?
decides,
and then who decides all that stuff? So then it leads to bans and all that.
Right.
So I think you've said this, and I think other people have said it for other kind of tools. If there is a better tool, then that's just going to naturally, the population is naturally going to gravitate towards a better system instead of needing a ban.
Yeah.
A ban is not really going to make the system better. It's just going to make it so it goes underground, or
Right.
or even if it doesn't go underground, it just will make a lot of those dogs that could have been helped. Those little dogs that people that were walking away with the solution, and
Right.
you're like, ah, I
Right.
know the
The hard
solution,
one.
and yeah. So I think because of how much of a slippery slope regulation can be, I think probably no regulation would be a better thing until maybe there is a system at some point. But that's
I'm with you.
yeah,
Like I personally don't see it.
yeah,
I mean, I for a moment, like for a very brief moment, I was like, maybe that is the way. And then it's very easy to convince myself, no, no,
yeah.
no, no. I think also regulations, once they're set,
So hard to
they're
change.
they're not easy to, they're not malleable.
Yep.
They're just there to stay.
Yep.
And if anything, they continue to go in one direction
Mm-hmm.
that somehow gets pushed.
Yeah. Unless you get somebody on the other extreme side, but then to get somebody on that other
Yeah,
extreme
but that
side,
means
then it just
revolution.
yeah,
That
yeah.
means like,
It's
a revolution.
so it just no, it's not a good idea, especially when there's not already a good system to
Like even now, I know that some of the European countries are becoming aware that they just really went way too far. But here they are. What you gonna do?
yeah.
Who's gonna be the one that everybody is gonna point the finger at to try to make a sensible change in those restrictions that they have? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you start messing around with other people's ability to do something that it starts becoming a problem because, if you disagree with something, but what that person is doing is not damaging, then you don't have to push to regulate it.
Right.
So like, why? Just leave them alone, let them be. The more regulation there is, it just
And there is a lot to regulate
yeah.
in dog training. If you like, I mean, you think of, we just briefly touched on this, like take any, a police department or some military, like some canine units or whatever, where there is like very serious structure, even though probably everybody knows that things can be done a little different now. It's just very difficult to add a sentence in the book, the manual.
Yeah.
This is just like not easy.
Yeah, once you have a system going, it is definitely hard to change. I mean, I see it even with my own company. Like we do see things a certain way, and right now that we expanded and we have to kind of think outside of our own things that we created.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to kind of bring yourself out, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. Oh, but it's gonna mess this up. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna mess that up because we're not thinking of that a new picture. We're just stuck on the old one.
Right.
So adding something is difficult. We have to almost like dismantle it at that point, and it is difficult to do that once that system has been in place. So that's probably what happens with police dogs. Is there's probably a whole better system that you can probably dismantle instead of just adding little things, but because they can't add it because it's already been set for so long, and then so dismantling it might be the best option. So and then restarting, but
There's few people in the police kind of world right now, man. Just painful to watch. Just painful to watch. And every once in a while, I'm like, man, I should at least talk just for my listeners about it. But then I'm like, I don't know. It's this thing of like, it should be said, but then, it's like, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus kind of thing. But in a way, it is. And difficult one. I just, like, I used to watch few just for entertainment, like pure entertainment. And we would have dinner or just drink or something, and I'll be watching and narrating, and Natalia just having a blast just listening to it. um, but then at some point, I was like, you know what, that's just not good for my head. Like it just, I stopped.
Yeah.
Like it's just not cool. But you know, talking about regulations, but then there is really, there is kind of bad training in terms of like kind of psychopaths, just people that are just not good people. They just don't have a heart to interact with animals, you know? And then there is others that just have no skill to be a dog trainer, but are competing to be the influencer of the month or so yeah, I know I'm producing bullshit, but I'm gonna keep doing it because I'm getting the algorithms. It's like fuck.
Yeah.
And then you have the new people that are trying, and how in the world somebody that wants to start right now dog training, and you see some with, I don't know, X number of followers and likes and daily flooding your Instagram or whatever, and then there is something else, and how do you decide where to go if you don't know, you know? Like I'm thinking when I was, you know, like somebody starting to do martial arts, it's so easy. So, oh yeah, you can do Tai Chi and you're gonna fucking destroy everybody. It's like, no, you are not. Like, nothing wrong about Tai Chi, but you are not gonna kill people. I don't know. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, because let's say I go into a field that I don't know anything about, and I am looking on YouTube. I will likely look for the highest views for sure. So it is a problem, you know. But
And then if the person is a talker and a catcher,
yeah,
it grabs you.
for sure. So, but this is where will regulation help that part? You know,
Right,
then
right,
you don't
that's
have
what I'm saying.
professionals. Yeah, then you don't have professionals. Yeah. So, but should you regulate? No, I think like they're gonna die out anyway, because
Right.
at some point it will be discovered. You know
Right.
what? You're just entertainment. You
Right.
know, we'll keep you on the entertainment side, and then let's let the you know actual people that know do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we have to separate that stuff.
Man, we have a few more days to go, and the weather's
warm.
now it's warming up. I mean, we started, it was like what, like 32, 33 degrees.
Yeah. It's very different to come one day with sweatpants and
I
jacket,
know.
and now like shorts and t-shirt.
And the dogs are like,
Oh yeah.
you know, dogs suffer with this kind of changes. I mean, it's not hot by no means. We're talking 65 or something,
Yeah.
but from 33 to
Yeah.
next day
I
65.
think we got to 74.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
So
I didn't
74.
yeah, that's
And
already
from 40, that's a big
Yeah.
big jump. So, yeah. But it's been good though.
But this is good. That's gonna be very, very exciting. You guys gonna know about it. Trust me. Everybody will know about it, and it's a good thing. We'll see what happens, but yeah. Javier, I think this was very cool.
Yeah, it was a
totally
pleasure.
enjoy. Like
It was a
you
pleasure.
have definitely a very inspirational story for anybody that's like just dwelling. It's like, oh yeah, one day I'm gonna whatever, and like I mean, from where you went and how you made it, and
Yeah.
you know, it's awesome. So, are you gonna come for the Mondio trial?
I'm not.
No, not
I'm not.
happening.
Yeah. No.
I have to find the time now because now it's really coming up. I have to,
Yeah.
like, I was really going
It's in 2
strong.
weeks. Yeah.
Shit. And then we went to England,
Well, let's train tomorrow.
and yeah, we have to, like, we have to do some training,
Yeah.
just at least something, because I'm starting to kind of be like, oh, maybe, yeah. Man, England was so cool. There was there was like one really funny story. Because I mean, the British English is different, so I know I have to be a little more careful to listen. But then you have somebody from Scotland asking a question, and I'm like, repeat it again and again, and then I'm like, sorry, it's got to be my English. And he's like, yeah, maybe your English and my Scottish, and it's definitely not coming. But it was cool. It was a very, very good one.
Did you have a British person translate?
No,
Oh, okay. You
no,
figured it out.
no, but eventually you kind of just in a context you start
I see.
to get like a
Yeah.
no, Scottish is a. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard it before, so it's like it's English, but you're not understanding.
Yeah.
Like it's like English, but you're like, I'm like, no, repeat it one more time because I didn't, and I'm convinced that I don't get it. But it was cool.
Did you have any like difficult cases there?
Depends. Like for me, they were very easy, like
Yeah.
like really like kind of instant things.
Okay.
But for the people that had the dogs,
Yeah.
some of the dogs had the problems for year or more or whatever.
Did you attract more like sports trainers, or were there like
I
pet
think it
dogs
was
too?
kind of half and
Half and
half.
half? Okay.
What was very cool, and maybe because I just haven't done anything in so long anywhere outside my own groups here. So I mean, there were few people that came from the States that are TWC graduates.
Oh, nice.
There were people from Canada, Malta, Belgium, Holland. Like there was like it was cool. It was
That is
cool,
super
and
cool.
and we had very nice conversations afterwards. It was a good like. In some ways, I miss it, but it's not easy to do those kind of things from all the things that I have to do.
Yeah.
But once in a while, it's okay to get out and excite people.
When are you
It's like,
planning to
hey,
do?
there is a different way to think about things. Like, and the good thing is when you see people getting kind of excited again. It's like, oh yeah, it's almost like it's a new thing, a new idea, and it lights you up.
Do you think you'll do it as a yearly thing?
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't know. Again, like if I have time, I love going places, but there is so many projects. Like we have now bunch of videos that I really want to get out.
Gotta get some Mondioring videos.
Yeah, yeah.
I need those.
But yeah, man, let's close that one and thank you for this.
No, this was a pleasure.
Tomorrow, I think they said we start early.
8,
I mean,
think.
early 8 o'clock
Yep.
Instead of 9 or whatever. So,
Yep.
all right, that's it, people.
Thank you.
To the next time.